But some of them doubted. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Today's passage from the Gospel of Matthew is set after the resurrection. The risen Jesus appears to the disciples in Galilee. This is set after, in Matthew's Gospel, this is set after the resurrection and after the women have encountered the risen Jesus and gone and told the apostles about the Lord. And now they have left Jerusalem and gone back north to Galilee to meet Jesus at the mountain as he instructed them before his death. This is the setting for our gospel passage today. Jesus, the risen Jesus, appears to the disciples and they worshiped him, Matthew tells us. But Matthew tells us something else as well. They worshiped him, but some doubted. But some doubted. What do we do with this? Why did Matthew include this? Matthew's job is to tell the good news of the risen Christ. But he includes something that is unflattering and potentially embarrassing to the followers of Jesus in the wider world, and sometimes confusing to us. Why? Now this phrase, but some doubted, is very few words, and on the page, compared to everything else that happens, it takes up very little space. And in the reading and the hearing of it, it's much shorter than anything else here. But it feels like an anomaly. It feels like a footnote or an unexplained family embarrassment. And yet Matthew puts it in the text. It was part of the original experience of the first disciples of the risen Lord. It was part of the understanding and experience of the first church of the risen Christ. And it has been preserved and passed to us. But some doubted. Matthew doesn't tell us what exactly that means. It's not clear if it means that here's the group of the 11 disciples, and over here among a couple of them, tapping their chin and looking skyward, saying, did a couple of them have doubts out of the 11? Matthew does not tell us if the disciples, the 11, worshipped him, but in the wider circle around the 11 disciples, did some followers of Jesus harbor doubts? Matthew doesn't tell us. The other possibility that in each disciple who met and heard call the risen Jesus, there was some doubt, even as they worshipped him. Matthew doesn't tell us. And as scholars go back and look at the ancient manuscripts and study it in the original language, it doesn't really clear up this question. The only thing we can say for sure is that they worshipped him, but some doubted. Doubt was present from the beginning of the church. And yet, the risen Christ comes to the disciples and says to them, all power in heaven and earth has been granted to me. And therefore I say to you, go forth into the world and make disciples of all nations. Go forth into the world and make disciples of all nations. Baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. The presence of doubt in the human experience of God is not a surprise to God. God knows that doubt is within us. Jesus understood that there was both worship and doubt in the eyes of the first disciples, to whom he gave this call called the Great Commission, to go out and to proclaim the good news of God's love and to make disciples of all the nations. We cannot surprise God with our doubt. We cannot shock God by our doubt. In the presence of both our worship and our doubt, Jesus gives the Great Commission and calls the first disciples to go into the world and to proclaim the healing love of God. He does not wait for our perfection. He calls, senses the faith that is within us and the doubt, and he sends us out. I will be with you to the end of the age, he tells us. The Holy Spirit will be with us to guide and equip us at each step of the way. We do not go out alone. We do not shock or offend God by our doubt. We are called to the Great Commission. The risen Lord Christ himself began the church by saying to the disciples, who both worshipped and had some doubts, "Go forth. Proclaim the good news of God's healing power." We are participants in God's healing of the world. We are participants, but God's power comes first. God's love comes first. God's call to us is our beginning and our end. And even with our doubts, we are in relationship. Jesus came to the disciples who worshipped and still had doubts. We are in relationship with God because God has chosen relationship with us. God calls to us and makes it possible for us to see the way, sometimes even when it's one step at a time. Go forth into the world, making disciples of all nations. Baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach them to obey the commandments that I have given you. To love God, to love one another, to love your enemies, to love one another as I have loved you. God leads the way. He has called us to follow, knowing our doubts and not waiting for our perfection, because we are in the presence of his. Amen.
Amen.